Streaming from Oklahoma's own digital studio, this is Dave Davis with Your Money Matters.
Hey everybody, welcome back into the Digital Streaming Desk. This is our exclusive digital first platform where we have a wide number of guests that oftentimes go above and beyond what we do on TV or totally different guests that we haven't had on TV before. That's not the case today. Matt Stephani is a returning guest and we're going to get to him in just a moment. But this is an exciting format because we can go beyond just the 3.5 to 5 minutes that we get on television and go in depth on topics that are, we think, worthy to you and relevant to you, and things that we can really talk about at length. And Matt Stephani with Cavanal Hill is here with me, the Cavanal Hill Investment Group, talking about artificial intelligence. Matt, good morning.
Good morning, Dave.
So tell us how you became interested in AI, right? Because you're in investments. What has drawn you to say, hey, I need to know everything I need to know about artificial intelligence. I need to learn that like now.
That's a great question, but I think what you're going to see over the next few years is a transition like we saw with the internet, which was a once in a generation change in how we do business, how we communicate. And I think this is actually going to be larger. So if you look back and say, what are the big transitions in American history? You'd start with the automation of factories back in the 1900s with Henry Ford and the Ford manufacturing facilities. You move forward to the post-war reconstruction of Europe, and then you have this digital age that began with the home PC and then went to the internet. And I think this is wave 4. This is the next big thing. It's going to last for the next 15 to 20 years as we see this ramp up.
And I want to show folks here, Matt, as we are just kind of going along, where we're going to go with this in our roadmap for today's interview. I mean, let's talk about energy. I mean, that's just kind of that kitchen table issue. We've talked about it before on television, that kitchen table issue of like, okay, are my energy bills going to go up and how does AI relate to like my wallet? So let's just start with the energy piece of this, empowering AI.
Sure. And Dave, we've talked about this before, but this is going to be a big factor in who wins the race to AI. And understand this is a race. This is Europe pitted against us, pitted against China to see who can develop AI first. And when you look at energy consumption, that's going to be one of the big determining factors. There's 2 things you need to succeed. One is the technology. Most of these companies are based in the US. The second is energy. Now think about a Google search. So you go on your computer and you search for a restaurant. That Google search will use about 1/3 of 1 watt of power. Now if you do that same search in ChatGPT, you're using 3 watts of power, so 10 times the amount of power. And if you're using a Google enhanced AI search, that might use 20 to 30 times more power. And appreciate the fact, Dave, we do about 13 billion searches a year. So take that and multiply it times the increased power usage, and you're looking at the power demands of a big country just coming from AI demand over the next 5 years. In fact, we'd estimate that AI demand is going to require an additional 50 to 80 gigawatts of installed power. To put that in perspective, 1 gigawatt is enough power to power about 1 million homes. So we need the power equivalent of 50 to 80 million homes built in the United States over the next 5 to 6 years. That's what it's going to take. And so will that have an impact on consumers and the utility bills? Wow, that is a tough call to make. Why is that a tough call? Because really you have a corporation commission or some entity that sits to try and regulate those rates. And I don't think regulators are going to want to see consumers like you and I subsidizing Amazon, Meta, Microsoft with lower utility rates. So yes, there could be an impact on consumer electric bills, but I think the corporation commissions are in a real struggle to try and balance that out. And it's going to vary state by state. Now remember, there's positives with these facilities being built in your locale, but there is this negative that you could see higher power prices as a result.
Yeah, I know, we're doing this interview in Oklahoma. This is going to go up on YouTube, newson6.com. Every state is different. I know in Oklahoma, we literally have the Oklahoma Corporation Commission that is in charge of these things. And is there a certain point where, I guess my question is like, can folks do anything about it in terms of these things being built, and maybe it's like, hey, I don't want to pay for it, or I don't want this in my area. Like, I know this is kind of a little bit beyond the scope, but just kind of like some folks may be kind of leery of new technology, as is with any technology.
Dave, I think the benefits of AI will outweigh the costs, and I think that state by state they're going to be looking and saying, how do we protect the consumer from higher electricity rates while at the same time allowing for economic development? If I look out and say, who is the global leader economically in the world 20 years from now? I think AI is going to be the factor that determines that. So you don't want to underinvest in AI. You don't want to be afraid of AI. AI is coming. What you want to be is the leader in it. You look at the tech companies, what are they doing? They're spending hundreds of billions of dollars this year, building data centers and trying to acquire power. And they're going to continue that level of investment for the next several years in an effort to put the United States in the forefront of the AI revolution. So yes, there may be some costs to consumers, but I think the benefit that we're going to see is going to outweigh those costs substantially.
Matt, what are the biggest areas where you think this could change our lives for the better? We know there's scary parts of AI, there's deep fake, there's different, things that people
Sure.
may be kind of nervous about, but what are some ways that you could see AI changing our life for the positive and therefore maybe saving us time and money? Because time is money, right? If we spend our time doing things that AI could do, we could be doing other stuff and making money.
Absolutely. And AI can automate tasks that we would normally do ourselves. And so let me give you an example that I used in the company that I run here at Cavanal Hill. A few months ago, one of the large utilities announced that they were going to reignite the nuclear power plant at 3 Mile Island. So my first thought was, I'm going to have my analysts go look at the 22 other nuclear reactors that have been closed in the United States and see which ones would be most likely to be reactivated, because that would be a good investment to make. Well, I started that project and I went to my analyst and said, hey, can you look at this? And then I said, let me take a step back. Let me try doing this with an AI tool. Let me have the AI tool do this research. And let me tell you, that research, Dave, was done in 15 minutes. And I was finished with a project that I think would have taken an analyst 1 to 2 days. So quite a productivity enhancer. I think there is a risk to some of the entry-level jobs, and you and I have talked about that in the past, that there is a risk that some of these entry-level jobs get displaced. But those who can use AI will benefit. It's like any other technological advance. For example, when in the old days, if you bought an airline ticket, you remember you used to get the printed out airline ticket and I could hand it to you and you could use it. That ticket was like currency back in the 80s. And there was tens of thousands of people in the United States whose job it was to basically take in money and print those tickets and provide them to you and I so we could travel. That no longer exists. Now we book everything on the internet and there's no real people interaction with that transaction for the most part. Now, that was a technology enhancement that eliminated jobs. However, those people were able to retrain and go into higher skilled positions. And in theory, that should benefit everyone. The idea that as you eliminate the need to do basic tasks, you can thrive on doing more advanced tasks. And that's what AI is going to allow us to do, particularly in the short run.
It's just so interesting. I just had this conversation with someone yesterday at the gym. It's like, well, what do you do? It's like, I work for booking.com, basically from home. I'm like, oh, okay.
Right.
So the ticket printing job that you were talking about, that maybe you have to go to work at the Tulsa airport or the travel agency or the ticket counter, now you're working for Booking, Expedia, Trivago at home, and it's a job that was created that was not possible 20 years ago.
Absolutely. And I think that's what you'll see with AI. You'll see some of these routine tasks, particularly knowledge worker tasks, so white collar may be first impacted, where those tasks that are not highly value added but take a lot of time can be automated with artificial intelligence. And that's a win. It's scary when it's taking place. Technology changes are always scary. Think about people making horse-drawn buggies back in the 1900s, watching Henry Ford build his first automotive plant. It's a scary transition. However, for the economic good of the whole, it ended up being a great innovation. And I think that's what we'll see with AI. It'll be a terrific innovation that ends up driving economic growth in the United States. I'm excited about it. I think we're well positioned for it. The United States is going to be the leader in it. And one of the benefits we have is we are the low cost producer of electricity around the world. So we stand to win with artificial intelligence.
What's it going to take to get these data centers online and running from an energy standpoint? You mentioned, we've talked about liquefied natural gas before. Is it kind of an all of the above approach? What kinds of energy are going to be needed and are going to be required for this massive heavy lift?
So I think it's an interesting question, because if you look at the energy demand over the next 5 years, you're talking 50 to 80 gigawatts. That's what I said earlier. 50 to 80 gigawatts is equivalent to the power to power 50 to 80 million homes. It would require, let's say, 50 to 80 full-scale nuclear reactors. We only run 94 in the country now. So we would have to build another, say, at 70 reactors over the next 5 years. That's not going to happen because it takes longer than 5 years to build a reactor. So I think the first response will be increased use of natural gas. I think you'll see increased demand from natural gas all across the country. That's a positive for us. We're a net exporter of natural gas, meaning we have the lowest cost natural gas access in the world, with the exception of perhaps Qatar and Australia. But that gives us an advantage. So I think you're going to see natural gas in the short run, nuclear power in the long run to power these data centers. Solar and wind are really tough because of the intermittent access to power that you have, right? You only have the power during the daylight for solar, and you only have the power from wind when it's windy. And the data centers need power 24/7.
So really kind of a combination approach. And I mean, as we know, with wind and solar, I mean, you can store it, but that also takes additional resources. Do you feel like
Right.
with the way that just how large our country is, the different geographic zones, that we are uniquely positioned? I think of large countries, obviously, China, Russia, landmass, where they have multiple time zones, different climates. Do you feel like that could help play a factor in, some of the land is protected, and I understand that, but this is just a big country.
No, I think that's absolutely correct. And over the last, call it 15 to 20 years, we've replaced a substantial amount of our electricity production that was previously provided through coal with natural gas, solar, and wind. What that does is it's left a lot of empty or vacant coal facilities. The Department of Energy has, in fact, identified 100 facilities prior that were used to be coal facilities that could be converted into nuclear facilities over the next decade. And so I think we do have that opportunity just by virtue of the fact that we have a very large country. And so there is some benefit to that. Look, if you're going to succeed in AI, though, you need power and you need technology. And it just so happens that the technology leaders in the world are based here in the United States. The power that you need to run these facilities is cheapest in the United States relative to the rest of the world. And so I think you're going to see innovation in the United States accelerate, driving higher productivity, driving economic growth. It's a great story, Dave. It's a great story what we're setting up for the next 5 to 10 years.
And something else that really has struck me, Matt, is, the availability. I mean, 300 plus million people living in the U.S. I mean, we ran a report this morning on 6 in the morning about college grads are struggling to find jobs, but even so, available workers, we have that in America. So for these workers who are looking for jobs, studying, whether you're a young person or just thinking about switching careers and you're maybe a little older, what are some things that are AI friendly, do you think, that we can start looking into? That's like, hey, I always wanted to work in this sector, but it's changing with AI and now I need to be going into this. What are some areas folks probably should be looking at specifically?
Well, Dave, I know it may not be popular to say this, but honest to goodness, electricians and plumbers are where there's going to be value-added work available for workers for some time. Think about the electrification of basically everything in the United States, whether it's cars, whether it's AI, whether it's the attempt to reshore industries back to the United States, bring manufacturing back. All of that requires electricity infrastructure. So you look at some of those jobs that maybe young people may have skipped out and said, no, I'm going to go to school and get a marketing degree or something like that. Maybe they need to look and say, where is the future from an electricity standpoint, from a hands-on HVAC standpoint? If you look at the data centers, 1/3 of the power used in these data centers, remember, this is a huge step up in power demand in the country. 1/3 of that power demand is just cooling chips. It's basically a big air conditioned building to run chips, but those chips run so hot that you need an incredible amount of cooling. So those kinds of professions I think will actually benefit. And then the other set of professions on the white collar side will be those who use AI to their advantage. In other words, taking AI and using it as a tool. So again, lower entry level jobs may be displaced, but creativity with tools we have, and this tool in particular, AI, is where you actually make the most money. And so I think using AI to your benefit becomes a career path to head down.
And it's interesting too, Matt, as you think about companies who may be getting more desperate for HVAC or electrical workers, not outside the realm of possibility. We've seen this in other sectors where companies are like, hey, we're going to pay for your schooling, we're going to pay for vocational school, we're going to pay for whatever it takes to get you on board, because companies are always looking for qualified workers, right?
I absolutely think that's the case. I believe that is the case. I think you'll see programs like that in the next few years because of this demand. It's basically an insatiable demand for electricians and HVAC workers at this point.
We've had such a wide-ranging interview, Matt Stephani. I want to be respectful of your time. Thank you for your time today. I want to just ask, last word on artificial intelligence. You've given us a lot of great wisdom today. I wanted to give you the last word on artificial intelligence and the developments happening now.
Well, I would just add again, Dave, new technologies can be frightening because they do impact how you live your life today. However, the growth potential that AI presents to citizens of the United States, to our country, is such that it will drive us out of the debt trap we've created by borrowing so much money from the federal government standpoint. I think it's the most exciting innovation I've seen in my career. And I was in this business for the internet revolution. I think this is more important than what happened in the late 90s and early 2000s. I'm excited about it. I think there is applications that will come in certain industries, but the opportunity set, I believe, expands in total. And I think that's great for the country. It's great for people who want to see their standard of living increased. And I think that's what you'll see with AI as it develops.
Matt Stephani with Cavanal Hill. Thank you so much, Matt, for being with us and sharing us your expertise.
It's a pleasure. Thanks, Dave.
It's been fantastic talking with Matt over the years. We've done a couple interviews, and referring back to the report that I was talking about yesterday that we did on 6 in the morning, the unemployment rate for new college grads has gone up. It has surged recently, and many of them are blaming AI that, hey, I graduated as a mechanical engineer, this 22-year-old from New Jersey. I graduated UConn mechanical engineering, back managing his hometown pool because he couldn't find a job despite applying for 200 positions as a mechanical engineer. And so things like that, the report that we were talking about happening. And then on the other side, college presidents and those saying, hey, if you keep up with AI and the innovation, you will not get left behind as an industry and as a worker and as a company if you're able to keep up with artificial intelligence. What we do know about artificial intelligence, it is here. It appears it is here to stay. There's a lot of financial ramifications, both positive and negative on the consumer side. And I really appreciated what Matt said about the utility bills. And yes, these need a lot of power, but you may, as a consumer, have that chance to raise your standard of living as electrical, plumbing, HVAC, the trades become potentially more and more in demand because of the infrastructure boom that could happen. Building power generation facilities, building the actual data centers themselves, and maintaining the data centers. As Matt Stephani has just pointed out, 1/3 of their power is just cooling the chips, making sure the chips don't melt down. That's 1/3 of a data center's power. And you talk about the ongoing years, decades long maintenance in doing that. There's a lot of opportunities out there and just things I've not thought about. And I'm so glad and thankful for Matt Stephani with Cavanal Hill for giving us these 20 minutes. So again, this is News on 6, our digital desk, our streaming desk, where we have digital first and digital exclusive content. Sometimes it is a continuation of interviews that we've done before, but this one, we talked with Matt back in January, February on TV. We really wanted to bring him back on now to talk about, because as we've been mentioning, artificial intelligence developments and breakthroughs are happening as we speak. Machine learning, the way that these machines learn, machine learning is happening as we speak. So there are new developments all the time with artificial intelligence. We will continue this conversation in the future. But for now, I'm Dave Davis with the News on 6 and 6 in the morning. We will see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you for watching this Oklahoma's own digital studio stream. Stay with News on 6 online and on television anytime for the latest news, weather, and sports.